Okay, let's have a look at solving the problem of the SwimclubDatabase. So there's the case study there, and it's pretty simple. We just need to create a couple of tables to represent the members' details and their performance for a few strokes, and there's some functional requirements there that really just relate to creating some SQL queries. And this one here, enable new members to be added, that we'll need to do that through a desktop application that we'll build. Some functional, non-functional requirements and constraints, so you can read through those. But the data dictionary, these are the data dictionaries, and there's a couple of those. This is the first one, swimmer's details, and then there's another one, swimmer data. Let's have a look at creating this one first. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 11 different fields. So let's go create a new database for us. So click on the new database, and we can give it let's call it Swim Club. That will do, and we'll just select create. All right, and there it is, and then we'll just go and add that table swimmers. Naming conventions are important, particularly when you're going to do queries via SQL. Now, look, I won't go ahead. Let's see how we go creating all of them. I'll probably let you go and do that, and I'll just show you how to create a few of them. So number of columns 11. And this will bring up the interface for us. Now, this gets a bit unwieldy when you've got to create this number. The first one was swimmer ID. And you still need to use the naming conventions, camel case and Hungarian notation. Now, swimmer, it's going to be an integer because that's going to be our primary key. Give it a value of 11 again. We're going to make it under the index. It's going to be the primary key. So we'll select that. Just go. And we're also going to check the AI checkbox, which means it's going to be an auto increment. That means that when we go and add data to it manually, new members, it will manage the the swimmer ID for us as we go. So then the next one was swimmer. I think swimmer name, or no, just name first. I think it is. You'll need to follow the data dictionary. I might vary from a little. What is it? What was the data dictionary? So 2020 for the names. Okay, so it's going to be a varchar, variable length string. All right, it doesn't make sense to have a record without a first name, so we're not going to check null. Name family, I think, is the next one, and that's going to also be a varchar. And 20, I think, was the requirements. The next one was gender. That's also going to be a variable character, but it's just one because it is. It really is just a character. Then we've got, I think the next one was, what is it? Address, street, suburb, and postcode. Street, a variable character again, and I think it was 100 from memory. Address, suburb, again a variable character, and I think, I don't know, 20 should do that. And then what have we got? Postcode. Postcodes, even though they're represented numerically, they still have character because we're not actually going to do any calculations with them. And the postcodes in the Northern Territory also start with a 0, I think. Address, what have we got then? I think it's telephone, date of birth. And also a variable character because, again, we're not going to do any calculations with it. And that'll be 10. Now, telephone, I'm going to set as allowing it to be null. That doesn't mean it is empty, but it just means that it can be empty. The rest of them can't. Telephone, if you have a look in the data dictionary, it's actually marked as optional. And then date of birth. Date of birth's an interesting one. It's going to be a date time object. We don't need to give it a length, but there is some stuff we need to set further up. I might have to just make this a little bit smaller. Date of birth, under the browser display information, we need to, so under the browser display information column, drop down, we need to set that to be date format plain text, because even though it is represented in the CSV file as text, but we need the date object to actually convert it for us. And we'll actually put something in the browser display information later on as well, just to see how that affects it. So let's come back to full size again. And then down to date of birth, and then the final one I think is fee amount, and that's going to be a double. And I think we make that 3 wide, and then fee paid, and that's a Boolean value. But interestingly, as you'll see later, SQL doesn't actually support a Boolean type as it actually lists it there, but doesn't actually support it. And you'll see that it converts it into what we call a tiny int. It represented as 1 as being true and 0 as being false. And that's how I've recorded in the CSV file as well. So now I'm hoping this actually works, because let's see what happens. If it doesn't, it should do, but let's see. Let's hope for the best. All right. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second and try and fix this error. Well, I don't know what the error was, but it seems to have been fixed. And there's what we've ended up with. So there's my 11 fields, and you should notice that they match the data dictionary. There are a few things that, as I said, you'll notice that fee paid is now it's as a tiny integer and size 1, because MySQL represents it as a 1 or as 0, not as true and false. I've got yes for null, so a telephone can be null. All the rest are required to have entries. There's no default, but I probably should have a default in there. And there's a couple of things I haven't done. One is I haven't set a validation rule on the date of birth, so that the date entered is less than or equal to the current date. But anyway, aside from that, we can go back and do that later, and we can also change any of these fields if we want to at any stage as well. Okay, so what we're going to do now, rather than enter data manually, we're going to import it. So I'm going to select that table, and I'm going to select the import tab from up here, and then I'm going to select the file. Now the file that I've put on Schoolbox is this one here, sample swim club data CSV. And you have a look at the file and see how that's actually arranged, but I'm just going to import that. Leave the character set as UTF-8, allow interruption, so don't worry about checking any of that. But what you must do is don't enable foreign key checks, and you must set the format to CSV. We'll leave all of these. Columns are separated with a comma, so we don't need to do any of that. And then when you're ready, just hit go, and we should get, there we go, so it's got 100, it's imported 100 records. If we just go and browse the data structure, what we should get now is that. So a couple of things to notice. All of the data is fine, with the exception perhaps of a few problems with the gender there. But anyway, okay. But there's also, you notice fee paid is 1 and 0. 0 is false, 1 is true. And also the date of birth. The date of birth is listed as year, month, day, rather than the way we would currently read it. So what we can do is come back into the structure. We can just fix up how that displays. If we select the date of birth field and click on the change, don't drop it, just click on the change. And you can see over here, input transform. We're going to change these. So the browser transformation is date format as plain text. I thought I'd set that, but clearly didn't. That may have been where the error came before when I resolved it. We're going to put in a browser display transformation, and the one we're going to put in is you can type it in. I've already done it, so it's remembered it. It's 0, then it's a quote sign, a single quote, %D dot %M dot capital Y, and that's the format string that we're going to use. So you can get to see what that looks like there. If you need to pause the video while you have a look at that and enter that in. Then if we save that and come back to the browser data again, with a bit of luck, that should have changed the way it's represented. So now it's represented as the 30th of the 5th, 2009, 23rd of the 4th. So that's a more rational way for us to see it. Okay, so that's the first table. Now the second table we need to create looks like this. So it's only got 1, 2, 3, 4. It has 5 fields. It's got a swimmer ID, which, as it says, it's required. It's a foreign key in the table because it's a primary key in the table swimmer details. All the rest are numeric data types, and we'll probably put those as its time. So what we put it at, hopefully it doesn't take you a minute. But anyway, I'm not sure. We'll put that in as minute dot second, something like that. That'll work. So let's go and have a look at that. Actually, I'm not sure how we'll enter that data. I might have to think about that later. All right, so let's go back, and in here we'll create a new table. And by default it's got 4, so I'm going to add another column up here. So now we've got 5 columns. And the first one is swimmer ID. It's an integer, and it must match what we had in the other one, so 11. And it is going to be a primary key. It's our primary key because there's only going to be one entry for that swimmer, and it will contain their details for 50 meters. There are other ways we could do it, but that'll work. Then we've got freestyle. We don't have one for dog paddle. What should we have it as? We could have it as a time. Maybe, I'm not sure. We can have it as time. Yeah, let's put it as time for the moment and see what we actually get there. So, all right, and then freestyle. What were the other ones? Backstroke, breaststroke, butterfly. I'm not putting swimmer in front of it. Can't be bothered. Backstroke. We'll put that as a time as well. I'm not sure how time will work in this, but anyway, let's give it a go. Time and butterfly. That was useless. Okay, and they can be null because there may not be a time recorded for those. But anyway, they may not have a time for each of those. So let's save that and see what we get. Should be okay. Oh, table name. So what have we got? TBL swimmer data. Okay. And then save. Okay, and if you get that, just ignore all. Seems to work. Works for me. Okay, so there's our 2 tables. Now, what we need to do now is actually create a relationship between these 2 tables. So we're going to, I'll click in the, let's click on table swimmer data, actually, isn't it? We'll click on table swimmer data, click on the structure tab, and then come into relation view. And let's call it swimmer constraint. And we're going to restrict the swimmer ID so that it can only, to be a swimmer ID, it must exist in our SwimclubDatabase. Make sure you select the right database, the right table, and it will match it for us. Okay, so we can save that one. And if we come into if we come back into that table swimmers again, and let's come in here, we should be able to see, we can click on the designer view and actually see what we've got here. So we can actually see that the two are joined there. So that's what our data structures look like, and they must match. Okay, we could go ahead and enter data now. So if we came back into our swimmer data and did insert, we would have to have the swimmer ID. Where are we? Browse foreign values. Ooh, I'm not sure what I'm going to do there. So there's all my data that I can select from. But we can go and enter some data there next time, or you can start entering some data in there. We should, once we've got those, then we can go and start constructing some queries around that. So first step, get the data structures done for that. Interestingly also, if you come into table swimmers here, I think what we should be able to do is, it's a bit of an error going on down there. What we can do here is we should be able to, where do we do this? We should be able to print out a, there's a bit of an error happening there. We should be able to print out a data, here it is, we can print out a data dictionary there and show exactly what that looks like for our columns. So that's how the database represents our data dictionaries. Slightly different to the way that we do, but then they've got different fields in there. All right, so that's the task that you need to get done first, is the structure of those two tables. So SwimclubDatabase, there's the table swimmers data and the table swimmers. Okay, good luck.